Writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack. Welcome back to Right Pack Radio. Today we are going to talk about the marks of a writer town. What makes a town appealing to writers? I am David Allen Lucas, author of mystery, science fiction, horror, and poetry, and your host today. My co-host is
Kathleen Kayembe, author of GLBT fiction, paranormal romance, and all-around magical fun.
With us today is
Brad R. Cook, author of The Iron Horseman and publisher of Blank Slate Press and president at St. Louis Writers Guild.
Fedora Amos, author of Jack the Ripper in St. Louis and president of Greater St. Louis Sisters in Crime.
Jennifer Stolzer, fantasy writer and illustrator.
Melanie Colaney, writer of science fiction, fantasy, and nonfiction.
Okay. Recently, there's been some posts or some articles that have come out on the internet about what towns are the best places to be a writer in outside of New York. And it turns out that you don't have to be on the two coasts to be in a best place to be a writer. New York is expensive, Los Angeles is expensive, but that's also where Hollywood is for Los Angeles. New York is where your big publishers are. But what St. Louis got defined as being the best town to be a writer.
We're number one.
Yes, we're number one according to the articles, but I asked this question because really, I love St. Louis, don't get me wrong when I say this, but really, what makes St. Louis that great? And when I asked that, Chicago is also a writer's town. There's various other ones around the United States. What makes something a writer's town? What's so great about St. Louis or other writer towns? Anybody?
Well, I'll jump in.
Go for it.
I think it has a lot to do with the general culture of the area. Our particular town happens to be very often mentioned in the most intellectual cities for a number of reasons, and one of them is that there's great culture here of all types, and one will improve the other. It's synergistic. We have lots of artists of all hues. We have great music. We have specifically music that is native to our country, great blues. We have many cultural attributes.
Yeah, I'm glad you just opened that door for me. And I think Brad might be, either Brad's ready to jump in here with the same topic, or Brad, please add to what I'm going to say. St. Louis itself has got a huge artsy culture to it. In the writer's side of it, let me give our audience a side to what we've got. We've got St. Louis Writers Guild. Brad's mentioned that most of us at this guild, most of this group, belong to it. St. Louis Writers Guild has been around for 92 years. 94 years. Thank you. We also have St. Louis Publishers Association, which is more for self-pubs, but they are, that's in there. We have the Sisters in Crime. We have a chapter of that.
Wait, hold on. Sisters in Crime?
Sisters in Crime. Sisters in Crime is, I'm going to let the president of Sisters in Crime's local chapter explain what Sisters in Crime is.
Well, we have been around for almost 20 years in St. Louis, and of course much longer than that in the country. It was formed by Sarah Paretsky and some others, mostly from Illinois.
Are you nuns that commit crimes?
Reformed nuns? No.
Stab. Okay.
What?
Sorry.
No, we have sisters and misters. We're not sexist, even though it sounds like it. But our job, our mission, is to promote women crime writers across the country. And that means that we also promote men crime writers across the country.
General crime writers.
Right. And then we've got the Missouri Romance Writers Association here in St. Louis, which is a part of
Romance
Writers of America.
I am a member of that as well.
There you go. Yes. We have the St. Louis Poetry Society. We have Saturday Writers. St. Louis Poetry Center. Thank you. We have the Saturday Writers, which is up in St. Charles County. which is a sister organization to St. Louis Writers Guild. We have, and both of those, by the way, are chapters of the Missouri Writers Guild. We have also, I just lost my place. Oh, the science fiction writers. I'm not sure what they call it, what the group's called, but runs Archon.
Do we have a SIFWA chapter here?
What's
No.
SIFWA?
Science Fiction Writers America, or Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers America?
What we do have, though, is we have a chapter of SCBWI, which is the Society, Children's Illustrators and Book Writers, or whatever it is. We also have, let's see, there's...
St. Charles County Writers, which is an online group.
Yeah. Did you mention Jefferson County?
No, I did not. Please.
Yeah, the Writers Society of Jefferson County. There are more too, actually. That's only the formal groups, and then you move into a variety of online groups, Yahoo groups, and other things like that. All in all, we easily have well over probably 1,000 working writers within the St. Louis area.
Or more. Go ahead.
And I would also like to point out that you cannot walk 5 feet without hitting a university.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
We do have several universities.
several.
But I would actually also argue that the literary culture is quite important. And so, festivals, we actually have several festivals that are going to be here in town. St. Louis Writers Guild holds one every year called Writers in the Park. It's a free writers conference. Missouri Writers Guild holds a conference every April, a really nice regional conference. And then we actually are going to have a giant literary festival this year, currently called Lit in the Lou. It's going to be this October, and it is a giant street festival for books.
And then on top of that, we also have other festivals such as Shakespeare in the Park.
Yeah.
We have an art museum. We have art festivals all over
Jewish
the place.
Book Festival?
We have a Jewish Festival of the Book. Is that what it's called? Or
No, it's Jewish Book Festival.
Jewish Book Festival.
I'm glad they went with that.
Then
No, it
we-
is. There is the New York Festival,
And it is and
Brooklyn Festival.
as Fedora said a little while ago, we have all this music in St. Louis that's originated from St. Louis that spreads across the country.
Back to the writers' conferences for just a moment. This, I presume, will be on the 8th. This
Should
will
be.
be presented on the 8th.
I think so.
There's one going on right now. It's sponsored by River Styx,
Yeah.
which is a literary magazine.
I'll be speaking
And it's-
there.
Oh, great. It's going to be down at the Moonrise and across the street at the RCGA.
RAC.
RAC.
Regional Arts
Oh,
Commission.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And we at Sisters in Crime are hosting one, which is going to be on June 28th. And it's not just for writers, though anyone who ever wanted to write a fight scene, you ought to absolutely check out our website and come to this workshop, because it's going to be at St. Louis Combat Institute, and we're going to tell you how to defend yourself.
And if, by the way, just on a sidebar, I also teach writing the fight scene. So, check out my website eventually. I'll have some online webinars on that.
He had a little grown man squee moment there for a minute.
Yeah, sorry.
He is rather qualified.
As a
Very
third degree black
qualified.
belt. Anyway, but yeah, definitely, and that's one thing we will talk about another time. Maybe is about fight scenes. But all these festivals really draw in the creative energies and.
Well, I was also going to throw out another thing I think is important to a literary town. If you're going to be a writer, are bookstores and publishers
Thank you.
and writers' services in the area. And we have a ton. I mean, we have such a great independent bookstore, community here. I mean, there's almost 10 of them or more, probably. There's
And
bars
the new
throughout
one's
the
just
city.
opened.
Yeah.
The numbers
just
keep
open.
changing.
We're sitting right in one right now here at
Indeed.
STLBooks.
Very generous STLBooks.
Exactly. So, there are a ton of them in town. They cover the entire city, and they welcome authors in. I mean, I'm looking around me right now, and there are actually a ton of local authors face out right in front of me.
Yeah, we sit in the local publishing section
Exactly.
of the recording of these.
We also have a huge author services for those people who need it. So there are editors, there are designers, there are, people that do the InDesign of the book, and these people are all part of these same organizations.
Including illustrators. over
Including
here,
illustrators who's over there illustrating right now.
yeah. And I'm through all these different groups and educational opportunities, I've learned a whole lot about the publishing industry that my fellow illustrators may not know. I can also help shepherd authors that don't know what they're doing toward these places that they can go, and they can find everything they need to learn how to publish that book they've been looking to publish for the last 12 years without having to leave the comfort of their own town.
Exactly. people they know.
Yes.
People they can know.
I'm going to lead into this with a question here after I mention this, and that is, in St. Louis, you actually have at least 3 huge library systems. You've got the City of St. Louis Library. Now, for those who are outside of St. Louis, we are an odd bird as far as a town. The city and the county, politically speaking, don't get along.
They divorced each other. I forget what year it was, but it's been
1876.
Yeah.
And like most divorces, it was over money and the company they were keeping.
Yes. She's dead on.
Well, they also wanted to put a courts outside in the county.
So, but going back to what I'm saying, the city has its own strong library system, great for research.
Yep.
The
Beautiful building.
St. Louis County, which is made up of all these municipalities, the county itself has one central library system that is fantastic, and they work with Municipal County, which is the Municipal Consortium, Municipal Library Consortium, I think is the name of it. I may be off.
that's close.
That's made up of all these locally owned. What I mean by that is each little municipality has its own personal library.
Technically, they're different towns or cities,
what I'm saying.
but if you put St. Louis on an envelope, it'll get to the right place.
Yeah.
Yes.
But this consortium works together, and in recent years, the consortium and the St. Louis County libraries have started to form an alliance where basically you can belong to one and you can go to wherever.
Oh, actually, the city has 2. I live in the city. I have 3 library cards. I don't pay for any of the library cards.
Right. And then, so we've got the libraries there. Let me talk about theaters. Kathleen said you can't walk around without hitting a university. You can't walk around here in St. Louis without hitting a theater.
Some of the theaters are in the universities.
Outside Webster, my alma mater, they have a great repertory theater.
They do.
They do. We've got the Muny, we've got the Fox, we've got the Black Repertory Theater, we've got St. Louis Repertory Theater. We have mentioned Shakespeare in the Park, and there's
Powell
a lot
Symphony
more.
Hall.
Powell Symphony, yes.
Muny.
Powell Symphony Hall.
We should even mention First Run, which is a company here in town, that they actually hold a contest every year to publish an unknown playwright.
Oh, lovely. Now, I didn't know that, so I
To
just learned something
perform
new. Now I'm going
They only do world premieres.
Now I'm going
Well, no,
draw us back
that's
to-
just one of their whole. That's one for the year.
Now I'm going to draw us back to this question that I was going to ask. We just got done talking about how great St. Louis is. And I think Kathleen probably has some things that she wants to add to what I've said, so I'm not going to... Please don't consider this me closing the door on your comments. Please feel free to add. But my question to everybody is, what makes any town, Chicago, St. Louis, New Orleans, Destin, Florida, whatever, a writer's town? What if you had to move out of St. Louis, what would you look for?
Okay, I'm going to throw this out. As president of St. Louis Writers Guild, I kind of have a unique perspective of this. And to be honest, I would say it is an active community of working writers and authors. People who are in the industry, people who are pushing the industry, people who are pushing themselves as far as they can go. Because that will not only propel everyone around them, but it's something to chase after for everybody else.
That has, I think, a lot of dimensions to it. Not just that there are people out there for resources, but also that the community is so supportive. If you go to a writer, whether they're romance writers or mystery writers, or to you, Brad, to anybody, you will find somebody who's sympathetic, who knows what it's like, and will help you.
Yeah.
It's important also to note, we mentioned briefly other artists that our town, and I'm sure many other towns, you'll notice when they thrive in an area, it's because there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of encouragement in those areas. We have a strong film community, so we have our own film competition every year. We have a screenplay.
We have a film festival now.
We have a film festival. We have a screenplay competition every year too, because we have a lot of screenwriters here, and we have all these writing events. These things exist because the people who love them live here. So places that have a lot of these public events, shows and contests and things hosted in them are good towns for people who make those things, because there's that universal general competition and encouragement happening in that town.
And I just want, since Jen mentioned screenwriters, before I turn this over, I'm going to turn this over to Kathleen next, because she's been waiting very patiently. Just to throw a couple of things out from St. Louis screenwriters. One, we had St. Louis Writers Guild was founded by
Sam Hellman.
what did he write?
He wrote actually about 40 films of Hollywood's golden age. A number of them you would know, stars you would know, and actually several Shirley Temple movies.
And then now into more recent time, and these are not our only screenwriters. I'm just kind of throwing this out as examples. The guy who created it's now off the air, but ran for several seasons, called Monk, was from here. So now, Kathleen.
Oh, I was going to add on to what Jennifer said
Please.
about all these communities and what Brad said about working writers. A lot of the things in St. Louis are open to writers of all levels.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of them are free or like $5 for some of the stuff. It's not a huge expense to dip your toe in the pool. And chances are, whichever pool you try and dip your toe into, everyone's really happy to see somebody else coming in, and we get excited and want to tell you all the things and drag you in and play.
No, I completely agree. In fact, St. Louis Writers Guild offers a number of free events throughout the year. I mean, we put on Writers on the Park every August, and that's a completely free event. And it's meant to draw in people who want to know about writing, who want to know about publishing. But what I kind of would have to say is that you need that core group of people who are, actively in the publishing industry to kind of support that layer of being able to draw on everybody else. Otherwise, we're all just online in our computers, all at home, alone. That's bad for writers. Get out there, meet other writers. In fact, one thing I do want to mention is that every city almost, most of them that I've run into, have a literary community of some kind. If it's just an online writing group, or if it's a writers league or a writers guild or just a, group of them. Check it out.
Kathleen, a few years ago you had to leave St. Louis, sadly to my heart, but we kept things going.
Thank you.
Which
back.
eventually led to the
tried.
creation of this media that we're doing right now. But you went to Denver or outside of Denver, Colorado?
Boulder.
Yeah, it was somewhere. It was halfway between the two.
Den Boulder.
Okay, and
Bolden.
Boulder.
as a writer, I know you felt out of place, but as a writer, what did you find, or what did you look for in a brand new environment as a writer?
Well, one of the things that attracted me to Colorado was the Boulder area because it was such a thriving artistic community. There were amazing cafes where I could go and sit and write for hours and still have it be in a cushy chair. There were just comfortable places to write everywhere, cool walking paths, all kinds of interesting people who were just cool to talk to out of the blue. People were interested in people, and there was a big community for all kinds of different arts there, like shows, music. My brother is in music, so I was connected to that a little more closely than other places. But yeah, a lot of the people I met were wanting to write and just did not have a focus, like a hub. And I didn't live in Boulder, I should say. It would have been really cool. But when I lived further out from there, people didn't really have an organized way of meeting necessarily. So that was something that I needed to make for myself. But once I started it kept going. It was great.
Yeah, I was going to say that one of the things about St. Louis, if you look, you can find affordable housing in most areas or close to the most areas that you want to be in.
And I think that's why New York and a few other towns got shot down with the lists that have come out, because it's so expensive to live there. And if you're a writer and you're trying to live by your writing, which right now I am not doing, because that's a very difficult chore to do. And unfortunately, writers don't necessarily get paid a whole lot of money. We're not all these famous writers who can go out and have a fleet of cars.
I have an actual statistic on that.
Oh, there you go.
In St. Louis, the cost of living is 11.1% below the national average. So I think that's pretty good. And other places around have even lower costs of living in Jefferson City, in Cape Girardeau, so that the entire area is supportive.
The
really,
thing
of the
about that
writing community.
11% below, that's on average.
Yes,
and
yes, that's what
some
I'm saying.
places, for instance, the Central West End, I live in the same ward, but right across Highway 40 from the Central West End in the Grove neighborhood, and rents there are about 25% less than they are in the Central West End, and that's going half a mile away.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you can do that with any city. There are
Well,
always
yeah.
going to be areas that are going to be better, than other areas.
But it's an important distinction that a good town to be a writer in is one where you can afford to be a writer.
Exactly. However, you can afford to live in New York and write in New York. Do that.
If you can be Castle, be Castle.
Exactly.
Real quick, one thing, if anyone's listening to this that's just curious about things, about you want to draw writers to your town, or you want to create a stronger writers community, one thing that Kathleen said a few minutes ago, well, actually several things have been said, but I'm going to jump on one. Have coffee shops, have cafes. We're not all Ernest Hemingway trying to get drunk while we write. A lot of us live on coffee or other caffeinated beverages, but it's also a great place to sit there and write. There's several coffee houses in St. Louis. Some are designed to just have you sit there and you write. Or you sit there. They're designed for you to sit there and linger and be a community.
They don't kick you out.
They don't kick you out. Then there's other ones that are more designed to get you in and get you out. Those are not the ones I'm talking about. I'm talking about the first group. They are the ones that will attract your writers and your more creative people.
I remember on a trip to Texas at one point, I saw a bumper sticker that said "Keep Austin Weird." I really liked Austin. It had personality, and that's something that I've found in places like Seattle or Northampton or Boulder and here that attract me as a writer. Just places that have personality. There's cool stuff to see everywhere.
Places that are inspiring in themselves.
Yes.
Well, she's also just described, like, every town you just mentioned has a thriving art, a thriving music, and a thriving literary scene.
Well, then combine everything in these places
Exactly.
and think about that.
Go where the artists are.
Go where the artists are. And,
But
I'm sorry.
no. I was just going to say, well, if you want to create something, you're going on that. If you want to create something in your area, do it. I mean, St. Louis Writers Guild started because a bunch of people sat around somebody's living room, and 94 years later, we're a big, thriving organization that does things all year long, but it didn't start that way.
Right.
None of them
But
did.
I think it's important to address how we can, we're talking about how great St. Louis
Yeah,
is. We're
right.
fortunate to live here. Not everyone is
How
as
can you
fortunate
make
as
your
we
city
are.
St. Louis?
Yeah.
I think you should make your city as awesome as it can possibly be
Exactly.
with a different personality from St. Louis, because that would just be awesome, and I could go
There you go.
and hang out and write there.
And I mentioned coffee houses a little while ago.
Yes.
Something else too, and this is not just St. Louis. Well, I'm going to use St. Louis as an example, but I'm thinking around to other cities I've been to that they've got similar cases. If you can, have locations that are inspirational to the writer. Let me use an example of St. Louis. You've got downtown, you've got the Mississippi River, you've got Forest Park, which was created around 1904's World Fair. Then, not that many people know about this in St. Louis County. Out in the west of St. Louis County, we have a place that looks very similar to Colorado in the sense we don't have the mountains.
I was going to say.
We don't have the mountains.
We have hills, but they're not that tall.
Yeah, they're not
They're
that tall.
really close.
But what I'm saying is we have Creve Coeur Lake. I don't know if you've ever been out there, and I know some of us have been.
Used to live on it. Well, right next to it.
And it is an absolutely beautiful place. You would not realize that you were in St. Louis, Missouri, unless you really knew where you were. We have a sculpture park. They call it sculptures. I'm sorry.
Hey, there's sculptures
They
there.
are
I like
fantastic
that.
sculptures, and some you can climb in.
And they even have the one that's through the woods, where you're kind of wandering through the woods and art just pops out.
Speaking
Yeah,
of
good
things
stuff.
you can climb in, I need to go back to the City Museum. I
Yes.
really
It's
do.
pretty
City
great.
Museum.
You can climb
The
up
Botanical
everything.
Gardens.
The Botanical
Botanical
Gardens,
Garden.
which a friend of mine used
The
to work
zoo.
for. I think he's retired now, and he told me when I went to London that while the Kew Gardens was beautiful, not to be super disappointed and try and compare to St. Louis or to St. Louis, Missouri Botanical Gardens. Missouri Botanical Gardens actually outdoes London's Kew Gardens, especially the Japanese Garden.
I would add to what you're saying that we have wonderful architecture from every different period. It's
Yeah, very
much
much
better
so.
preserved than a lot of other places. So if you wanted to write history, which
Yep.
of course is one of my things, if you wanted to write history, you could go down and see a row house. And it would look like the kind of row house that you could find in Birmingham, England, or New York, or almost anywhere
I
else.
live in one
And
of
a lot
those.
of those.
No, it's so true. We have that beautiful brickwork from the 20s. We've got the more contemporary stuff from the 50s and 60s. It's just, it's a beautiful city for architecture.
I would like to point out that while we are talking about St. Louis, I think a little overmuch,
Yeah.
given the generality
A
of the
little
topic.
proud.
It's our frame of reference. But in a move to get away from specifics about St. Louis. We love it here. You get that.
We didn't even talk about the Cardinals yet, though. No, just kidding.
I can write several things about the Cardinals.
I wanted to ask everyone, what would your ideal writer's town have in it? If you were going to go somewhere to live and be a writer and feel like you're able to do your best work and be supported in everything, what would your ideal writer's town be? Even if it's a retreat center, because I would love to go.
Okay, so it's got to have outdoorsy space where I can go sit outdoors and write, because that's fun.
And be in nature, right?
It's got to have indoorsy place with, air conditioning, so that I can write there too.
And Wi-Fi.
And
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, yeah. Well,
Wi-Fi outdoors too.
Wi-Fi's necessary
that's
for,
dangerous
research.
because, okay, maybe, but that's also meaning social media, and that
Yeah,
pulls away
that-
from writing. So,
Yeah, social media can be
but
like
there
a
has to
drug.
be Wi-Fi in the town somewhere.
It needs good research facilities of some
Oh,
description
yeah.
or other.
Dora, you just you threw it open. Thank you. I went back I talked about libraries. St. Louis also has the police library. I don't know if you guys knew that.
So you would want a town with a police library.
I would want a
He
town.
wants a town of
Well,
nothing
since I
but
write
libraries.
crime, I would want a town with a police library, so I can go in and take a look at the various books and manuals and so forth that the cops use, as well as certain old cases, dead cases.
So accessibility
Accessibility.
to research of the kind of work that you're writing.
I want
Yeah.
really awesome museums.
Museums,
So I can walk around and look at stuff.
theater. I don't know about anyone else here, but I get
Love it.
inspired by theater. Because I can see stories right in front of my eyes. I get inspired by classical music. I like all kinds of music, but when I'm writing, I like to have classical music on because I see the story in my head with it. What else does everyone else look for?
I'd like to talk about accessibility because that's one thing that is different in the writing towns that I've been in. The ability to get to where all of the cultural activities are.
Yes.
Like, do you need to have a car or can you take the public transport system? If you do take the public transport system, do you feel icky afterwards? You need some place that...
I wanted something small enough, like a European village, so that I can just walk and not really have to do anything major. Because if I could drop the car, I would. But St. Louis is a car town, so
No, I
by
could
having
drop
a
the car.
I run around and I can go anywhere in this town, which is awesome, and that's nice. But it'd be really cool if all those museums and libraries and coffee shops and everything we've just talked about is on like a one block.
Frankly,
Kind of,
it is.
yeah.
It's called the Central West End.
Kinda. I would argue no.
But yeah, all our love for St. Louis we've been talking about in here. Brad just threw out probably one of the biggest monkey wrenches to that is we are a car town. We do have a metro link. It doesn't go everywhere I would like it to go to. We do have public transportation, but most people drive, and that is a big thing that Kathleen pointed out is accessibility to everything. Here, yeah, we've got cars, we're able to get there, but really, we don't have that super accessibility like some other towns do have. And that is a huge thing.
On the other side of that, you can get just about anywhere in 20-25 minutes.
Yes, this is true.
It's true.
No, I will say that while I drove here today, I was without a car for 5 weeks. And I was without a car 5 weeks most recently because my old car died. And I waited that long to get a new car. So, it is possible to live here without a car.
I might have to institute a St. Louis jar, like a quarter every time. This is ridiculous.
Clink. Okay.
I had to think
Go.
new people because of universities and because of places where there are a lot of jobs and low cost of living. You often get a lot of new people, and having new people coming in and out is amazing for an artistic community. I would want that.
Yeah, we have a big refugee community. We actually have, I work near BJ,
Chink.
Point it, okay,
Chink.
not
Chink.
mentioning mean St. Louis then,
Chink.
but there you have easy access to all people coming directly from another country, and so there's all these support systems to support immigrants, all that culturally. You can go to research.
And they have good restaurants.
Yeah.
So then
Yeah.
it sounds like a lot of new people coming in and out, and people of different backgrounds that have support for staying in the location if they want to.
Speaking of that, support for staying in a core group of people that are there for a long time is also good, because otherwise the culture changes too fast for a place to become distinctive.
Roots.
Yeah, some people need roots. Not everybody, but some people need roots.
I would say that my ideal writing community, I have a dream I've always wanted to make come true. Someday I'll be rich enough, or at least comfortable enough to do this. I've wanted to take a writing cruise. I want a space, maybe not forever, but a space solitary, encapsulated, away from all the troubles that are at home and all the responsibilities that are at home, where all my needs are easily accessible. I don't have to worry about any of that. Food's included. I know where I sleep. If someone steals something from me, he's stuck on the boat somewhere. There's a guy in charge that's running everything. And ideally, I would either take it to a place that I want to write about, or I would get one of those transfer cruises where you just stay on the boat the whole time, find myself a little nook to write something, get food, order in when you want it, sit next to weird people at the restaurant and learn where they come from. They come from all over the world to go on this cruise. They're all looking for a vacation just like me. They might be interested in what I have to say, which is always a motivator for me when they let me talk.
Some people do cruise ships versus assisted living. The cost is roughly the same.
I'd be into that.
Yeah.
Let's put me down for that as
I
my
want an
retirement
island.
plan.
Give me an island.
Jennifer, you're doing writing vacations. That's what it sounds like. I first heard of things like that from Sarah Rees Brennan, who wrote the Demon's Lexicon YA trilogy. She and a bunch of friends who are YA writers went to a castle somewhere, just a writing trip, a bunch of them together, and it sounded amazing.
Sounds brilliant.
I would want to take writing vacations like that.
There are a ton,
Lynn,
actually.
Yeah.
Lynn Flewelling is the Night Runner series author, and she does writing workshops on cruises. Like, you have to sign up, and it's kind of hard to get into because she's Lynn Flewelling, but she has writing workshops, so writers go with her on cruises to workshop their work and just enjoy only having writing as their focus.
Going back to
Sorry, real quick before you leave that, there are actually a bunch of writers' conferences around the world, which are awesome. So in Naples and throughout southern Italy, through the castles of Ireland, through some of the ones in France, in Scotland. I mean, there are some just amazing writers' retreats and conferences you can go to. It's like 2 weeks sometimes. Love them. Sorry.
Go ahead. No.
I'm done.
Brad and I were shaking our heads. There's one thing we both would like to do, but we're kind of falling onto writing vacations. I want to get back to Mark's Little Writer Town, but Brad and I have shared a fantasy back and forth of being able to go to the International Writers Association conference, which is usually held either in one of these castles or in places like New Delhi or whatever. And they have 2 or 3 a year. We've been invited. It's just too expensive for us right now. But the accessibility. I want to go back to accessibility.
Oh, I have a point about the topic we were just doing, the vacation bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I was trying to get off of that, but go ahead.
Sorry, pace of life, the amount of stress. I think that's the key thing with the writer vacations we were talking about.
Yes.
There are plenty of places you can live that are not going all the time. So you have the mental space to kind of sit back and observe and know your own thoughts and write. So
That's an important thing for me specifically because I have my own business. So I can't leave the office.
No.
The office is me, and I am the office all the time.
Yep.
So, Kathleen, you've come with me on several of these adventures
Yes.
where the idea was I leave everything at home. I go to a place I've either rarely gone or never been before. Not even just to write, maybe to read a book or to just think or talk about a project I'm working on. That's what's inspiring me as a writer, is to leave all of the other stuff that fills my head with cobwebs away.
No, coming back
Completely agree.
to Writer's Town, so do you want the Writer's Town to be go, 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 or do you want your Writer's Town to be laid back, or do different writers want different things?
different writers want different things.
Yeah.
I think for me, I would like a mix, but I would definitely need those quiet places.
Can I get like a week of quiet and then the weekends are like go, go, go? That'd be cool.
One thing, though,
In my
I'm going
block
to
town.
two things I'm going to give this to Fedora. One is access to information. Again, I'll go back to that for a second. And that is the access to universities. Universities are usually your research hubs. If you're a writer, you're a researcher. I'm sorry. We have a job that is permanently with homework. Now, you don't have to have loved homework back when you were a kid.
Yeah, they didn't tell me back back in school.
Yeah, thank God they didn't tell me that. As a writer, I might not have done it. But universities are usually open to people coming in and doing research. You might have to pay someone to check stuff out, whatever.
Or the professors will actually talk to you.
Yes.
You know.
Exactly. And then...
they also have a lot of people coming in that they specifically bring in.
Yep.
Now, is that as much of a thing in our Google culture where we have the entirety of the internet at our fingertips?
You know, the problem with the Google culture is you don't know if what's on the internet is 100% accurate.
Research.
I know, I agree. I do want to say one last thing. I'm going to jump this back over is to those of you in the communities that want everybody to be, I'm going to call it the cookie cutter, fill the suits. If you want that as your community, if you've been hearing what we've been saying, that's not where your writers are going to be at. That's not where your artists are going to be at. We're the weird. We're the ones who see the world differently, and we point that out to you and try to make you feel and see your world just a bit differently than what you think it might be like.
Oh, I would like to say for anyone listening, if you have anything you would like to add about this, because I know everybody's going to have something different that they want, please comment. Please say something. Because
tell us what you think your favorite writer's city should have.
And now I'm going to go ahead and plug that. Okay, where can they comment? We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. And we have a page on Blog Talk Radio. Feel free to post comments or tweet to us or wherever on any of those locations.
we're also on iTunes podcasts.
Yes, we are. But I don't think you can comment on that one.
I think you can do ratings.
Maybe, okay. I don't know.
Yay, we're informed.
Yes, we're informed. But also, too, you can find us on iTunes. I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, well, that's sort of past, but but I'll say something anyway, and it is that our universities, as well as our various cultural organizations, also provide us with a lot of people support and reference points, because if you ask them, they'll answer your questions. It's just about as simple as a phone call, and they'll come out and speak to your groups and are very
But I was
generous,
thinking,
I think.
the problem with Google is you get all this information, but a person can tell you relevance or importance. They might be able to drill down immediately and say, forget the first, 10 Google pages you have to go through. They can tell you directly what you're interested in.
I would also like to point out that I've gone to some of the author series events, and very little is cooler than seeing Laurel K. Hamilton or Joyce Carol Oates speaking. I have a rock star complex with a lot of different writers, and it's cool just seeing people. They don't have to talk to me directly. I like to be in the presence, and it's inspiring.
So what else do we look for in a community for writers?
I think that each writer that has already been here and made a mark of some kind has something to say to us. Just last Wednesday, Maya Angelou, the brilliant writer and poetess, died. She was from St. Louis. And I think she has inspired innumerable people from the city.
I didn't realize she was from St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
There was the day of her death, there was a slam poetry gathering on her star down in the Loop.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of stars, I think that's important. Living in a place that honors the creative people in the arts
We should
who
talk
have
about the
been in the
history.
past, like who've come from the past.
You want a town
To the
of
future.
history. I mean, this town alone has 200 years of literary history almost. I mean, it goes back before Mark Twain. I mean, Mark Twain is obviously the famous start, but you come up and you have people like Winston Churchill, who is not the famous British diplomat, but actually a huge writer. We had greats like Temple Bailey in the 20s, who was the largest female. She was the biggest female writer of her day. She was the most paid. She lived here. That carries up into the 60s. Or I should say through the 40s and 50s, where we had some amazing writers. That carries up into the 60s. That brings you up into the kind of late 70s and early 80s. That'll then take you up to the 90s. And all of these have been thriving literary times here in this city up until now, where you probably have one of the largest literary communities in the Midwest.
I went to ReaderCon last year, and we, a friend and I, went to a panel on urban fantasy and putting the urban in there, the cities, back in the fantasy stories. And one of the things we discussed was it's so much easier to see magic in little places everywhere, really, when you live in a place that has a history. Like, we can go here in the US, places that have like 200 years of history we can see. But going to the UK or something, like, oh my goodness, there are things everywhere. You will never know everything.
You know, it's funny that you said that.
Real quick, sorry, I would argue we have Cahokia Mounds,
That's all.
which is taking you back
Yeah.
even further than that. You stand on the top of Monk's Mound, and I mean, you're staring at a lot of history around you.
Do we have an underground city that was built over
Probably.
Yeah, that was Cokia Mounds.
Well, but
that you can
Yeah,
still go in?
underground
They have one in
caves.
Seattle.
St.
Oh
Louis
my
has
goodness.
is built on caves, so it would not surprise me if we have an underground city.
We do have a lot of
We do have
caves.
caves, yeah.
Okay, one thing though, Brad, you talked about with, UK and all that, and that's one thing you were saying. I was going to say, I got lost in London. I went to London back in '05, and I was going around, and I don't mind getting lost someplace. And I got lost, and it was a very odd feeling, because I went from literally within a block, seeing 8 or 9 different generations of architecture. And it is the history of a town, a history of the city, a history of a location that creates the magic for the writer to feed off of, or for the art, or for the painter, or any other artist.
I think it might influence the type of stories that get written there too. A type of story where they have trouble building a new parking lot because every time where they dig, it turns out to be an archaeological site. It's a little bit different than someplace newer here.
Yeah, Greece has that problem.
Yeah.
Funny enough, my friend MJ King, who's from Maine, talked about Stephen King, who's also from Maine, and her completely understanding why Maine is so often the settings, or is always, why he can live there and stay
Largely.
there. Yes, and stay there and still be so inspired every day. And I did not understand until I went to visit her. And there are forests there, just a sense of wildness. And there's a lot of variety in the geography and in the people. So there's a mix of novelty with history.
Maybe that's another thing that makes a writer's town, the ability to reasonably easily leave and come back, because a lot of things about wherever you're living you don't see until you're somewhere else.
That's very important, I think.
Yeah.
I would go and come back.
Yeah.
And see things differently.
Yeah, because I
Which is-
traveling, I never know what's everywhere and what's regional.
But it's important for writers to be able to look at the world with new eyes, and I think that's something that's very helpful about leaving your home and coming back. Because until you leave, you can't really know what is your home compared to anywhere else. You can't know, does every place ask, what high school did you go to? Or, does everywhere tell you how far away things are in minutes?
No, every town has its own little thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn this. I'm going to turn this on its head for a moment.
Gasp.
If you noticed, you the listener noticed, there's something we didn't say that makes a writer's town, and that's kind of what I'm going to say. I'm going to kick this on its head and say, what does not make a writer's town? The standard cliche for writers, and that's because of the old 1920s plus writers were known to get drunk and then write. Bars are not on that list. Nothing we've said has led to bars.
It's not Paris in the 20s anymore.
Yes. Damn it. So what else does not, I repeat, not contribute to our writing culture?
Well, people get inspired by all different kinds of things. Just because we don't, I'm not inspired by the drink, doesn't mean that other people are not
This is true.
inspired by the drink.
I would like to point out Julia Cameron, who is one of my favorite people ever. She's a writer. She wrote The Artist's Way, which is a book designed to help people get back in touch with their creative energies and feel freer to do things like that. She was an alcoholic when she was, I think, in her 20s. She writes about that in Floor Sample, her memoir, and other places. But something she had to learn was that the alcohol was not writing for her. It was helping her be less anxious. It was helping lower her inhibition so she could write. But the alcohol was going to kill her, so she couldn't write at all if she kept it up. So I think it's less about bars necessarily than it is about people being able to have the kind of community that encourages them to let down their emotional, inhibitions enough to write.
So in other words, to keep this kicked on its head, a restrictive community of any kind is definitely a killer to writers.
Yes, you need a safe space if you're writing.
Or else you get a lot of 1984-esque novels out of that town.
One other thing I think is important, not being restricted to writing certain things. And I bring this up because as a fantasy writer, I hear, don't go to MFA programs. They won't let you write fantasy. They're going to make you write literary fiction. You're going to come out writing about toasters. And
You can make money writing about toasters.
I want to make money talking about magic toasters, though. So
Magic toasters are great.
your toaster, Jennifer, ran a game for me and some friends. Her toaster in the game nearly killed us. I just want to say, magic toasters are way cool.
Okay, what?
So, in my defense, it had knives. It was a toaster with knives.
Game, role-playing game. It's where one person is kind of the narrator, and they have
Our audience
friends.
should know what D&D is.
They have friends who play individual characters in the story.
So you were playing a D&D game with a magic toaster?
Oh no, it was Firefly.
It was a Firefly game, yeah.
Okay.
We were on a Serenity-style ship, and it was mostly automated, and the toaster was the villain.
What was I saying before, though? Because
I don't know, you're talking about toasters.
We're talking about MFA programs.
yeah, so the fear, I think, for many creative writers about such programs was they will force me to write a type of fiction that is different from what my voice is trying
They'll
to
kill
say.
you were worried that they'd kill your creativity.
Or they'll just steer you down the wrong track for you as a writer. And I think in a creative, in a writer's town, you need people to encourage you to write whatever it is that you need to say. A restrictive...
Let me just clarify. Have you taken a master of fine?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I'm saying, like, on the internet, I see all these things. And
No,
it's
and I
getting
would say
better.
that this goes to the sense of needing music and art and other culture within, because that's going to create that creativity and that freedom to explore and to write even more and to push yourself as a writer.
Freedom to explore, I like that.
Yeah, I will say that I've taken a couple of writing classes that are similar to that. Masters of Fine Art classes that you would take. One of them, great teacher, did not steer me. The other one, I got very frustrated in that class, and I realized writing for that class, it's like, okay, interesting story, but that's not at all the story I want to write, so let's just not take that part of it for my writing.
So
in the
that
future.
teacher is the don't category for writing towns, and the first one is the please do.
Well, yeah, but I think a lot of it was just both the group I was in and everyone is trying to direct you to the teacher subconsciously, what they like to read. So
Yeah.
you need a teacher that likes to read what you want to write.
In a community that is respectful of that.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's something to be said for learning the fundamentals. I mean, Picasso started out doing portraits, and he did them very well. It was only from that basis of understanding and developing his internal muse, or whatever you want to call it, that he could go out and create some completely new kind of
And
art.
it takes some skill to recognize what's a fundamental and what's your creativity being stifled.
In art class, they always tell you that you need to know the rules before you can break them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's true of writing.
It's true of most things.
And
But don't break the rules just to break the rules.
Yeah.
I'm going to make
Have a
this
purpose.
sound... Sorry. I thought you were done.
Nope.
I apologize. So, I'm going to make this sound a little more romantic, and I don't want to take away from the fact, as writers, we're all business people. We are in a business. It is a... Unless you are just doing this as some type of hobby, if you really are trying to make a living at it, or if you really are trying to earn any type of money on it, it's a business. But we are in a business of magic. We are in the business of painting inside of people's heads. We are in the business of a quest of trying to find those perfect words. The 7 words to make someone fall in love with you. The 5 words of how to make friends go without pain. Yes, I'm quoting from something.
You're quoting from Babylon 5,
I
which
know.
might have been quoting for something else.
But what I'm trying to do is say we are the dream makers. And if we are to thrive in any type of community, we have got to have a community that is electric with the creativity and the magic. St. Louisans, you're lucky. Chicagoans, you're lucky. Except for having the Cubs. Sorry, I
Did you
had to,
have to?
people. Yes.
Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yes.
They have great community.
They have got a great community.
No, Cleveland, Florida, New York, Boston, San Francisco.
The writer towns are all over.
Montana, Pennsylvania.
Montana's not a town.
I'm really in
Yeah.
a
Well,
place.
they have one, but
They have a
Across
town.
here.
no.
They have a couple towns.
Yeah, I mean, there are only like 5 people in Montana, so they've all got to get together.
All right.
In all honesty, if you are in a town that has the magic, you're lucky. Count yourself lucky. Be lucky. If you are not in a town where the magic exists, you have 2 choices. Move to a town that does. And if that's not an option for you, and believe me, for a lot of people it's not, create it. You are, if you are a writer, if you are a painter, if you are, I don't care what type of artist you are, you've already got the spark inside of you. Use that spark to ignite the fire in your area and create the type of town, create the type of creative town that you want to live in. Any other final comments?
The people are there. They just have to see someone start.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of giving up just because it looks hard. You've got to, if you want a writers community and you know writers, then get with those writers and make a community.
And if you don't know anyone else in your area who's a writer, guess what? If you have the internet, guys, that's something that we didn't have generations ago. Or even a generation ago.
Generations ago?
Generation ago. I know, I said yes. We didn't have that where you could just go online and find your people. That's also a source, and you can find your people that could be only a block away through the internet. And on that note, my co-host has something. Go ahead.
To live in a place that is good for creative people of all types. Foster the kind of atmosphere that you want in your ideal creative town.
And on that note, thank you for listening to the Right Pack Radio, and next week we will conquer yet another interesting topic in the writing industry. Theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her. Right Pack Radio would like to thank STLBooks for allowing us to record in their office. STLBooks is an online bookstore specializing in new and used high-quality literature, children's books, and books written by or about St. Louis. Please visit them online at www.stlbooks.com or find their store on the Amazon.com website.